if you've done that, and I'm ready whenever.
Yeah, I've done the introduction that
Yeah,
I'm
very
going to
good.
do. I'm not into long introductions.
Yeah. And I'm happy that at least some people showed up. There was actually 56 people registered onto this event in the system, but that's a classic thing with like with Facebook events and other events, So, but anyway, so thank you for coming. And I'm Robert from the Citizens Foundation in Iceland. We are one of the partners in the PACE project. We are a nonprofit that was founded in 2008, sort of right after the financial crisis hit Iceland, with the aim of creating like web technologies to connect government and citizens. And we have a platform called Your Priorities, which is a popular citizen engagement platform used, for example, by the City of Reykjavik, the Scottish Parliament, City of Vienna, World Bank, and many others. And since 2015, we have also been experimenting with approaches of more of a listening method, to listen to the web and Twitter and so on. We did a project, another EU-funded project, an Erasmus Plus project in 2015, 2017, called Deep Linking Youth, where we were looking for to understand and help policymakers, EU policymakers, understand attitudes of young people to youth mobility within Europe, and this sort of method of searching the public web or social media, like we did with Twitter and in a Deep Linking Youth project, it's a way of getting sort of an extra dimension of understanding what citizens are discussing online. And in the PACE project, then we are looking at populism and nativism specifically, and a bit of civic engagement and citizen engagement. And we use an archive called Common Crawl. And I'm going to show you a little bit. I'm going to switch over to a little presentation now. Let me see if I can share my screen. Yeah, like that. Yes. And we basically we've built tools and technology and keywords to search the web for topics connected to populism and nativism, and understand what the sort of trends around the different topics has been since 2014. And the components of the PACE dashboard is a core component is the PACE keyword scanner. And so this is the open source technology we created, which searches a public data source called Common Crawl for texts and keywords connected to populism and nativism. And we searched over as from 2014 to 2020, we searched over 2 petabytes of pre-processed paragraph text, just pure text with no HTML or anything like that. So that's like 2 with a 15 zeros number of characters. That's a lot of characters, and that was a huge challenge in the project. To sort of how do we technically search so much data. This took actually a significant time to figure that out and find the best technology, the best hardware, and so on to actually manage to scan so much text. And we created 19 topics that we wanted to search for, that are sort of based on sort of populist and nativist topics and grievances. What are the grievances that sort of manifest in the populist nativist sphere of discussion and influence. And then we created a public website, and that shows like a trend analysis of the different topics, and also has a graph that show you which topics connect which topics are close to each other on the web. So if one article is talking about a certain topic, what all the topic are in that article, and how does that sort of connect together. And I'm first going to break a bit out of the presentation, and I'm just going to show you a really quick overview of the PACE dashboard. And it's actually here. This is the link. It's publicly available, and I will paste the link into the chat later. But the website, has few components. First is an introduction, and including a link that has quite detailed description of the project. Everything in this project is open in terms of that all the methods are open in terms of the technology that we use to scan this, and also all the keywords and the AI, the data that we use to train the AI models with. That's all open, and you can access links to that in this here. Read more about the project here. But let's look at first. Here we have topics, and here we have connections. Let's just first look at the topics. So here we have the topics, and we have just a short description. What we mean by this topic, because obviously, topics, are often quite flexible in terms of what they contain and what not. And that's one of the learnings from this project is it was quite challenging to like, for example, left behind by the global economy. What sort of topics and subtopics should be used for that, and then fake news and distrust of media. That was another topic that really was quite interesting to see how because we were looking here at the English speaking world, in terms of how Brexit, Trump obviously had a huge influence on this. And but I'm going to go at the end of the presentation, after I've told you a little bit about how we actually created this. I'm going to go into a bit more detail on each of the subjects. So but I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of what we're talking about, and what sort of topics, like, for example, interesting with QAnon, to track that. And it's like really unbelievable, an order of magnitude rise that was relatively quickly, and many others. But I will go into more details, and we'll see some examples of what was searched. But then we also did a couple of searches related to the Populism and Civic Engagement project, that we looked for citizen engagement, civic engagement, and also topics connected to democratic innovation, participatory budgeting, and so on. And it was actually quite nice to sort of see that there at the end. And then the second way we looked at the data, and those are just two ways of looking at the data that we collected. And in this approach here, we have basically calculated how close each of those topics were, and this is and again, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about this after I show you how we did all of this. And but this essentially is showing you each of the topics, and each of the topics has a connection to the top most connected. What was, if you take each of the topics, and then each one has two other topics that is connected to. And so this graph shows that. So it shows, for example, in the different years, this is 2014, how some topics become more of that are more connected than others, and are connecting topics together. And then we can sort of look at this over the years. But as I say, I will go into a bit more detail and open this sort of up for questions. Just a little bit later on, when I've sort of talked a little bit more about how we created all this. All right, so back to the presentation here. So here's just a quick overview of how our project, sort of from a technical standpoint, works. So, so on the left side, you see the data sources. So in this project, we use Common Crawl, and we'll talk a bit more about that in detail now afterward, what that is. And then, but it's possible to use, like, if you buy data from Twitter or you buy, data from Reddit, you can also easily sort of hook that up into the PACE keyword scanner, which is the open source project that has basically all the knowledge and all the innovation we did in this project is manifests in this open source project, PACE Keyword Scanner. This can be used by anybody. And so as a central thing, the PACE Keyword Scanner has keywords. And we use the keywords to search for the topics, like the left behind topic or anti-elite or whatever it is. We create keywords, and this was actually quite a involved process, and I'll go into detail about that later on. But really important one, because you have to have the keywords search for something that is both not too wide. You don't want to get hundreds of millions of paragraphs back that you need then to use the AI to filter out or find some needle in the haystack. But you don't want also to have the keywords too specific, otherwise you will not capture enough of the content you're looking for. So that was sort of one of the first things we went through and created and tested keywords. And we used Google often to test the keywords, because Google, while a lot bigger than Common Crawl, it's quite similar. And then we trained AI models to, after we had done the keyword search, and so maybe 70% to 80% of the content was relevant. Then we still needed to filter out the rest of the 10, 20, 30% of content that's not relevant. So just in Excel, Google Sheet documents, we just looked at the paragraph and just put one and X to them. I'll show you that also later. So after the search is done, the data is then added to an Elasticsearch database, which is a really popular data analytics database, and it's really fast, and it allows some pretty sophisticated data analytics to be done, like really so you can do it really quickly. And so at the top right there you have a tool called Kibana, and Kibana is like a part of Elasticsearch. It's like a web app that is like an analytics web app with a lot of charts and graphs, and you can search the text, and both we used this a lot to understand what we were doing, but also in our collaboration with the Technical University of Dresden, they used this dashboard to understand the initial part of the keyword creation. That I'll talk about that later. We use like this hybrid approach where we fed sort of top keywords coming out from an analysis of populist materials, and with some custom keywords, and then the sort of final output of the presentation is the PACE dashboard. And that's the website that just showed you that anybody has access to. And then it's Common Crawl, and we really love Common Crawl. I mean, it's it's a nonprofit that every 1 to 2 months they basically have they rent a huge data center, and they crawl the public web, which is basically public websites, news sites, blogs, political parties, forums, and so on. But they don't have any social media in there, and that's because while we love Common Crawl, but there is a matter of fact that over the past years, then the public sphere of discussion has been shrinking. It's sad, but more and more of discussion and groups and so on moved into Facebook, Instagram, and to some extent Twitter. And like with Facebook and Instagram, there is no you can't get any even public Facebook groups that you can see and search through Google. You data scientists and researchers just can't get access to that. But at least we have Common Crawl, and and which is a great service. There's over 4 billion individual pages that are crawled in each of the months, and they've been crawling the web since 2013. So and their whole data set, which is petabytes big, it's actually added to the Amazon Public Dataset program. And Amazon AWS, has this program where they offer like scientific data sets to be hosted on their site, where if we access the data from a computer on Amazon, we don't pay for any bandwidth. And this is really important because we would just probably not have had the budget if we would have to actually download this huge data set from all those months ourselves and have to pay for the data transfer. So it's a useful service, and we used at the time the fastest computer you can rent on Amazon. It has 72 physical CPUs in it. It's like you can't even imagine. It's almost like a supercomputer. But actually, they have added recently another one which is even bigger than this one. But it takes about 4 to 8 hours to search each month crawl, and as I said earlier, we actually made a serious effort to negotiate access to some Facebook public group data that would be anonymized, and we had many meetings with them. We got close at one point. We actually had a positive sort of referral within Facebook that was interesting to put us into some program where we could get some limited access to some public data, but it didn't happen. And it's just a classic thing with Facebook, and the classic thing also with I guess a bit the dangers of the public sphere shrinking so much. And because Facebook, they can analyze and search their data, like all the public Facebook groups. Obviously Facebook has they can use the data for themselves, but even in a publicly funded research project like PACE, no way. We considered Twitter as well, but it's getting ever more expensive, and there are many people already doing research there, and the platform has sort of a bit of a liberal bias. It did have I guess with Trump, there was a small set of like Trump followers that were on Twitter at some point. I'm not sure how much they're there, but it's just not like the most sort of promising data set to look for populist narratives in sort of the wide scope of society. And so the PACE keyword scanner, that's the open source project, and it's built on its core on another open source project called Hyperscan. And so this is a project of Intel by their best engineers, have over the past, I think, 10 years been building like the fastest and most heavily optimized sort of regex scanning library, which is sort of text search scanning library, which is really important, in terms of, because in our case, we were searching for a lot of text. And, the common crawl, the scanner can scan tens of thousands of keywords simultaneously. And so we had, well, I think we used only like, 2,000 individual keywords or something like that in the searches that we did. There's an XLS, it's like Excel Google Sheets based keyword creation, validation, and AI coding process. So we at some point in the project we were thinking about how creating this sort of an AI training app where people would have an app and be able to classify the different paragraphs. But we decided to keep it all in Excel, or like in our case Google Sheet, where we create the keywords, do the validations, and the AI coding. And then we have some of the other features are obviously the AI engine itself and the paragraph distant graphs engine. And if you can see, then the URL is here at the bottom, but I will also paste it to the chat right after I finish. So this is this represents Common Crawl, how much data they have in their how much they captured, and we normalized our sort of topic trends, based on this. So they had a big technical change in 2017 where they got more of the web, and then then the reduced amount of data is actually because, as I say, sadly the public sphere is shrinking. More and more organizations are just living inside the walled garden of Facebook, for example. Here's one example of how our keywords work, and this is, I guess, there was the most simple one, and we wanted to find paragraphs that are connected to being left behind by the global economy. And so we have basically three different phrases: left behind, ignored, and forgotten, and then an and condition: economy and minus 5G. It turned out that when we tested just the left behind, ignored, or forgotten and economy, we got a lot about areas being left behind in the 5G revolution for some reason. That often happens when you're doing keywords like this. You end up with something surprising, so but then we can have in our engine, we can have like minus 5G, so it will filter out anything that has 5G in there because of the minus. And here's more of a bit more complex set of keywords. So this is in the topic of resentment of elites, and in the anti-elite category, and as you see, the last part of the search logic, the final and, it has a lot of keywords: hostage, out of touch, self-interest, campaign promise, hardworking, da 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 da. So this actually comes from research from the Technical University of Dresden, where they, through their process and also using data from a previous project, they basically came up with 20 most sort of populist-oriented keywords that were they found in news articles online, and through like manual coding. So we used those keywords along with a more of a focused filter, where we have the elite, expert, educated, academic, celebrity, and then we have and resentment, anger, and distrust, and then one of those other populist, nativist related keywords that came from Todd. And this is just like an example from our a screenshot from one of the Excel documents. You can actually see all the Excel documents if you follow the link, read more. It has links to the actual Excel document, so you can take a look at this. But this is from the first round of testing, where we had coded. We basically took like 100 samples from each of the different subtopics, and then we sort of manually coded how relevant they were, both for the AI, but also to understand the keywords. And it's a wide, it's a wide range of results you get from this. But when we are trying to capture a topic like left behind or family disintegration or loss of religion, then we break it down into sort of subtopics, because you can't just like put in the words left behind into a search engine. It's gonna just, you have to really, take a slice of the topic in a way. And for the AI training, we use the sort of latest transfer learning technologies. I'm sure you've heard about GPT-3, the model that can create short novels and answer really it can it's very powerful, and we did not use that. We don't have access to that model, but we did use a close relative that's a bit smaller, called BERT, and it's a model basically. And so what's important about the sort of transfer learning models, based on sort of older generation of AI, is that we are training the model to recognize those populist, nativist narratives, but the model already comes to us pre-trained, basically on English. That it's been pre-trained to, understand the semantics and stuff of English. So when we are training the model, we're just like fine-tuning it to understand all those different topics. And people have asked us why do we need the keywords? Why didn't we just take all the text through the AI models? Because it's just that we would would be totally not economical, because 2 petabytes of text through AI models would just not work. So we use the keyword searches to get us close to content we're searching for, and then we train the AI models to filter out most of what's not relevant. And the distant graphs, as I'll go a bit more into that detail, is that, I mean, that's actually extremely simple. Well, extremely, it's not really extremely simple, but it's relatively simple because it doesn't use any AI. It's just counting. It's basically like, we come to a website, and we go to a web page, and we find one topic on the website, and then if we find topic 1 in one paragraph, and then underneath it there's another populous topic, and because the paragraphs are next to each other, we give them a big bonus. And then as further away the paragraph, let's say the topic 1 is at the top of the article, and then topic 2 is at the bottom of the article, we give it a bit less bonus, but still a bonus, and then a small bonus if the topics are appearing on the same websites, so on the same domains. So it's just about using a really fast algorithm to and we do that with Elasticsearch to calculate how how those connect together, where they were found, how close to each other they are, and that's how we can understand a bit how close those topics are appearing and evolving over the years. And this is an example of the AI training. Nothing glamorous, just like a Google Sheets document, where you put in one. Actually, we have 1, 2, or 3, and that's explained in the read more document, and those are all marked as relevant. And you just put 1 there. You read the article. You put 1 there, and those are like examples of ones that we put an X to, which, I mean, it's maybe even talking a bit close to the topic, but still not. And this combination of keywords and this sort of it's almost like a reversed junk mail filter. It's not that complicated. It's basically like throwing away anything that doesn't fit the given topic. And finally, I'm just gonna go a little bit here back into the website itself. So yeah, so before I go down, I mean, Brexit, Trump, I mean, I mean, we could see that from many of the topics we were looking for, that those 2 topics and the 2020 American election and everything that's been happening around that, really affected many of the trends quite clearly. And you can see here, like in 2016, it tops here, and then it sort of really takes a big dive before it rises again in 2020. And we will, in January, we are going to release a new so basically in January, Common Crawl will release the final the November-December crawl, and then we will add 2021 to all the charts, and it will be interesting to see how those sort of evolve. And topics like fake news and distrust of media, restriction of populist speech, that's quite interesting. Loss of religion as an organizing force, that was we were quite, there's a lot of different aspects of that. Choice of conspiracy of a dominant culture, uncomfortable with evolving social mores. And then there's some others that are that have sort of different sort of quite different patterns, and the classic like resentment of elite. I mean, that, for example, has not been trending as highly as it did, like it's its top here in the, at the Trump campaign, and so yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, and we wonder if that's sort of COVID, connected to that. Feeling ignored. That's a classic issue that seems to be it pops up again and again in when we're talking about populism. In terms of how users can, how citizens feel they don't have a voice. And say we have QAnon, and when you can click here, actually you can click on each of those, and then you have a random sample from well, actually not here because there's not enough data from QAnon, but then you have like a random sample from the database. So you can't just, you can't look at all the data, but you can sort of look at just get a random sample. And it was just finished going through this, and we did start to track this year the nanny state, the pandemic overreach. Obviously, there's not a lot of that before, and not a lot of pandemics before 2020, fortunately. But it'll be interesting to see how this goes this year. And and for example, the call for voter suppression. I mean, there's not, at least was a very special situation in the United States and in the English-speaking world. Things like resentment of immigration, and it's interesting to see that doesn't really have like the same pattern. If anything, that seems to be less of dialogues around that. And then, and we are quite happy with this, is that the volume of discussion around citizen engagement and is, I think, something often it is connected to populist topics, and in terms of that, and connected to the idea of not being heard, and proposed as a solution on that. And so they like also democratic innovation. It's really interesting and nice to see, because that's the other sort of side of what we do. Looking into there's so much you can feel that there's so much sort of power in the civic tech, citizen engagement community, and in general in this idea of improving democracy. And then finally, I'm just going to go here, and we're going to look at the this is done using another. This is the actual graph. It's done using an open source engine called 3D Graph engine. I'll see here, 3D Force Graph. Here we go. And this is also on, it's on GitHub, where you have it's basically like a tool for allowing you to do nice graphs. And as I mentioned earlier, we take each of the topics, and we have calculated the list of the most connected, what all the topics are most connected to this topic, and we take the top 2 topics, and we make a connection between to those other 2 topics. So that means that topics that have that are connected to many different topics, like, for example, a desire for strongmen, connected to restriction of free speech, evolving social mores, losing cultural identity, left behind, and income equality. They are all connected to desire for a strongman, and then it's basically, we can see family disintegration is quite often, and we see that like in general, that often is sort of popping up. And remember, this is 2014 here. So if we then move forward and we go down to we go to 2015, and we can see it has it has the quite similar dynamics, but still sort of a bit different. And then 2016, which was the Trump year, which had like an explosion of populist, just the volume of populist related narratives on all sides, was really changed, quite a bit. And there again, there's family disintegration is one of the sort of central hubs again here, and resentments of elites as well up here, and this is actually quite interesting. And then 2017, and for the first time here we see QAnon pop up, and we go to 2018, and similar, but still sort of changing quite a bit. And here we actually see how, with all those narratives, this is actually quite surprising. Well, maybe not, but we can see how QAnon has become one of the central hubs. We can see how false accusations of racism, evolving social mores, we still have family disintegration as a big hub, and resentments of elites, but we are sort of, it's evolving, and QAnon, and it's just amazing just to, when we started to look at this and look at just the effect of QAnon, just the volume of QAnon talks online, it's just, I don't know. I mean, how could this really have happened in like 21st century? It's hard to understand. But yeah. So, and then 2020, and that is basically, you have clusters here of income equality left behind, underserving support. We have like, for example, the call to vigilant action, which really sort of popped up in 2020, connected to the US elections, that connected, for example, to the false accusations of racism, feeling, being ignored, and so on. And so I could talk all day about this, but I'm not. So thank you for the opportunity to present, and I will take any questions if there are any comments.
So my question is the same one as normal. What other sort of information have you got these bits, scraps of text indexed on? How else could we sort of disaggregate this? I gather that geographical location, which would be nice, is very difficult because you don't know anything. But
yeah, I mean,
do we have any other things?
Well, I think that a few years ago, 10 years ago, the geographical location could be, you could get that from the website. It came like .co.uk or something like that. But the recent years, that's become almost impossible because everybody has a different ending now. .party or something, for political parties, for example, but yes, I mean, what we did in terms of looking at those trends, those volumes, and how the different paragraphs are connected together is just two approaches. We sort of thought about the different options, and those were the sort of two top high priority options to look at. And but you could also see because all the paragraphs, I think around 20 million separate paragraphs that we captured as a part of this, are sit in like an Elasticsearch database. So it means that and we've done a lot of sort of more informal investigations in terms of what are the main websites the content is coming from. For example, we can see exactly the websites that every paragraph is on, and through like Elasticsearch you can sort of see what domains are pushing out most of the information. And we've heard about this before, where there are websites like out there that are that are used to host like propaganda, where we have a lot of articles and paragraphs about the similar subject, and often like many copies of the same exact wording, and often that sort of stuff that you would connect to basically disinformation farms, and then they have those websites publicly online, and then they're posting on social media always to those websites. So we found like few big caches or clearly there's like those huge mountains of disinformation that it's a bit sad maybe, but yeah. So those are two things, I mean, that this sort of analysis can look at. It's, I mean, we thought the trends were important, the connections, what topics are connected to each other, but you can also do you could do all sorts of analysis on this, sort of where it came from, and then if you wanted to dive deeper into the individual topics, I'm sure you could extract more meaning out of that as well. But obviously we are in an EU project, there's a lot of stuff to do, and only limited time, limited budget, and so on, but we are quite happy with the results.
Good. Jack Stevenson asks, what are the units of the horizontal axis, I presume on the graphs?
Yes, this is basically the volume, and
the volume compared to divided by the base amount of volume.
Yeah. So basically it's the volume of I mean, so from the baseline that we have. So it's but I mean, we did have numbers on there in our first iteration showing exactly, like, it was like, from 100,000 to or from, like, from X to 100,000, or an X to 1 million, or X to 10 million, or something like that. But the thing is that, and we also thought if you would do a comparison of the trends, if we could compare them like that. But what we realized is that, because, like, for example, the left behind narratives and the anti-elite narratives, so we are taking a slice out of this topic as we find it online using like sub-narratives. And so we're taking a sample of the data set there. And we're doing that for left behind topic. And then we're taking another sample from the anti-elite topic, or resentment of elite topic. But the thing is that, because we are just taking a sample from each of those, we can't really be sure that we are capturing the most voluminous sample necessarily. We're taking a good sample, we feel, in terms of to represent the individual trend for each topic. But if we would put it all together, and we would have one topic that had like 1 million hits and the other 100,000 hits, and we'll like compare it together, we could not have that wouldn't stand scientifically, because we don't have we can't know that we captured just because, I mean, if we could have all the data and we would capture all the narratives of left behind, we would capture all the narratives of anti-elitism, then we could do the sort of the relative comparison. But we didn't feel like we could do that, and that's also the reason why we decided to remove the numbers from the left part, because it gave the wrong impressions that we were saying that a certain topic was much more voluminous than another. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Jack, if you want to come back, do. Are there any more questions? You can either type it in chat, or raise your hand, or just turn on your camera to do that. Give people a little pause. So we've got the links for the PopPace website and for the dashboard in chat, and you were gonna paste the where people can get the software if they really want to do
yes,
that.
Absolutely. I'm going to. I'm also just anyone with the link. I'm just sharing. I'm gonna make my presentation public as well. So there's the link also for that, and on GitHub there. I'm gonna paste that link as well. And if you have any questions, or have more interest, or you want to use the open source software in your own project, looking for something else, then we're happy to do that. We are actually, the same software is being used in another EU project called Demos, which in that case they're looking for Russian propaganda specifically, and So, and it will also be used in another EU project next year that is looking for people's attitudes on artificial intelligence. So it's already being sort of, well, this method, being replicated to other projects. So, and we encourage people, if they are interested, then it's all open source, and we are, always, happy to answer any questions about this and so on. And
Yeah. Good. You just have to look up Robert on the web if you want his email. It's easy, yeah.
Robert at citizens.is.
Yeah. Citizens.is. Yes, if you go there, you will get. Okay, so if there's no more questions, we will stop recording and thank everyone for their attendance.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.